I want you to imagine, like you're deciding you finally want to meditate. Usually there's this heavy expectation of profound, immediate peace,
Oh,
right?
absolutely. You picture this totally serene sanctuary.
Exactly. You might light a candle, grab a cushion, close your eyes, and just expect your mind to instantly transform into this placid, undisturbed lake. You think you're about to escape your day.
It's a very, idyllic picture we paint for ourselves. I mean,
Yeah.
we just assume the physical act of sitting still automatically equals an internal state of calm.
Right, but then you actually try it, you step into that internal world, and suddenly you realize that placid lake is actually, well, it's a chaotic, stormy ocean.
Yeah, it's definitely not peaceful.
Not at all. You hit this shocking, towering wall of buzzing, chaotic anxiety. It's like a primal fear, this deep, restless agitation you didn't even know was hiding in your own body.
It really feels like an internal ambush. You sit down to relax, and instead, you uncover the terrible truth about how crazed your mind actually is, leaping from one anxiety to the next without, a single second of a break. It can be terrifying.
Yeah. And that unexpected head-on collision with our own inner chaos is exactly where we're starting today. So welcome to the deep dive.
Glad to be here.
Today, we're unpacking a really fascinating audio text centered entirely on what's known as the 51st gene key. And our mission today is to map out a very specific, profound transformational path laid out in this material. We are going to explore the journey from deep internal agitation, which is that buzzing wall of anxiety we just talked about,
Right.
through a state called initiative, all the way to a final destination called awakening.
And what is genuinely fascinating about this framework is how it completely reframes that initial agitation.
How so?
Well, the text explicitly argues that this discomfort is not a flaw in your psychology, is not a sign that you're broken or traumatized or that you're doing life incorrectly.
Wait, really? Because it definitely feels like a flaw when you're in it.
It feels awful. But the text says this agitation is actually a dormant potential. The author places the 51st gene key inside what they call the codon ring of humanity.
Okay, let's pause and define that, because codon ring of humanity sounds like a pretty heavy piece of biological jargon. What does the text actually mean by that?
Yeah, it's a bit dense. So, in the vocabulary of this text, a codon ring refers to a specific grouping of genetic codes within human DNA that supposedly govern broad collective themes.
Got it. Like shared traits.
Exactly. So, by saying agitation is part of the codon ring of humanity, the author is arguing that this inner darkness, this deep-seated discomfort, is hardwired into the human species.
So we all have it.
We all have it. It is a universal shared biological baseline that we're actually required to explore if we want to evolve. I mean, it's not a mistake in your personal upbringing. It's literally a feature of the human condition.
Okay, so if this agitation is so universal, like if literally every single human being has this wall of anxiety programmed into their biology, why are we all so historically terrible at dealing with it?
Right. Well, the text provides a very clear psychological mechanism for this. It identifies the shadow of this key as harshness.
Harshness.
Yeah. When we hit that wall of inner discomfort, our natural reflexive nervous system reaction is to meet it with profound harshness. We basically default to one of two extremes. First, there's the flight response.
Classic runaway.
Right. We might just turn and run. We dive into denial, we repress the feeling entirely, we scroll endlessly on our phones, or we overwork. Basically, we distract ourselves completely so we don't have to feel the buzzing.
We just refuse to even look at the wall.
Precisely. But then the second reaction is arguably more insidious, mostly because it looks like self-improvement.
Wait, how does harshness look like self-improvement?
Because we tense up and violently try to fix the anxiety. We get incredibly harsh with ourselves. We operate under the logic of, I am agitated, therefore I must aggressively eliminate this agitation.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Like treating it like a disease.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We might force ourselves into therapy with a really rigid agenda to be cured, or push through extreme yoga routines, or meditate even harder with clenched jaws and a furrowed brow.
Right. Like, I will achieve inner peace if it kills me.
Yes, we try to aggressively cut the discomfort out of our bodies.
We treat our own inner life like it's a tumor that needs to be excised. The text uses Aesop's fable of the north wind and the sun to illustrate this. And while it's a really familiar story, the way it applies to our nervous systems is super striking.
Oh, it's a perfect metaphor.
Yeah. For anyone who forgot, the fable is about a competition to get a man to take off his winter coat. The north wind blows a freezing, aggressive gale, but the harder the wind blows, the tighter the man wraps the coat around himself.
Right, the force just creates resistance.
Yeah. Exactly, an equal and opposite physical resistance. But then, when the sun simply shines gently, warming the air, the man willingly unbuttons the coat and takes it off himself.
And the underlying logic there is just crucial. When we feel agitated, our default setting is to act like the north wind toward our own nervous system. We try to blast the anxiety away with sheer psychological force.
It never works.
Never. The harder we try to suppress our own anxiety, the more our sympathetic nervous system flares up. We create a massive feedback loop of panic. So the entire premise of this text is asking us to use the sun.
To use warmth.
Right. Warmth, curiosity, and gentleness to disarm our own defense mechanisms.
Well, and if we follow that logic outward, the inability to use that gentleness doesn't just stay trapped inside our own heads, right? It bleeds out into our external lives. The text highlights how this internal harshness acts like a detonator in our relationships.
Oh, big time. The mechanics of how this plays out in romance are remarkably predictable. I mean, picture the classic honeymoon phase. Two wounded human beings come together, they fall in love, and for a while, the infatuation and the dopamine surge completely mask their internal buzzing.
It's just chemically blocked out.
Exactly. But once that chemical honeymoon period fades, the novelty wears off. And what's left? The underlying baseline chemistry of their individual agitation inevitably rises back to the surface.
Because that baseline frequency is too deeply rooted in the DNA to stay hidden forever just because you happen to, really like someone.
Right. And if neither person knows how to deal with their own internal wall of agitation gently, it becomes a literal collision of frequencies.
That sounds messy.
It is.
Yeah.
If you haven't faced your own discomfort with the warmth of the sun first, you don't stand a chance when it arises in a shared space. You will automatically project your internal chaos onto your partner.
Oh, man. So now you have two states of agitation clashing.
Right. You snap at them because you feel uncomfortable. They blame you for their discomfort, and a massive cycle of mutual destruction begins. The text actually notes that most relationships never stand a chance because we simply aren't taught these basic energetic mechanics of incarnation.
Okay, I want to challenge this premise just a bit, though. Is this agitation purely just our own individual psychological baggage? I mean, is it really just two people bringing their childhood trauma and biological quirks into a living room? Because looking at the broader world right now, it feels like there's a much bigger reason everyone is so extraordinarily restless.
That is a very perceptive observation.
It just feels like the agitation is in the air itself, independent of our personal psychology.
And that actually bridges perfectly into the macro perspective this framework introduces. The text makes a pretty radical pivot here. It argues that this agitation is not only internal and psychological, it is fundamentally external and cosmic as well.
Cosmic. Okay, this is where the material gets pretty esoteric. Break down the logic of that for us. How does the author connect astronomy to human neurobiology?
So, the author asks us to zoom out and remember that our entire solar system is physically moving through space, describing a vast spiral arc through the galaxy.
Right, we're not stationary.
Exactly. As it moves, it passes through different regions of cosmic energy. It's not static. The text posits that right now, our planet is moving into a completely new energetic field, something commonly referred to as the precession of the equinoxes, or the shift into the age of Aquarius.
Okay, I've heard those terms.
Right. And the specific mechanism the author describes is that we are spiraling out of a long period of galactic eclipse.
A galactic eclipse. So literally, our solar system has been astronomically blocked or in the dark.
Energetically, yes. The framework suggests that for thousands of years, the Earth has been in a sort of shadow, cut off from the direct energetic transmissions of the galactic core. But now, as we move out of this eclipse, the light or the subtle frequency data from the center of the galaxy is coming back into direct view.
Okay, but how does that light and space translate to me feeling anxious in my living room?
Well, the text operates on the premise that human DNA functions as an antenna. It receives and processes cosmic frequency. As this new, intense galactic data streams back into our environment, our DNA is subtly absorbing a massive upgrade in frequency.
And I'm guessing our biology doesn't love sudden upgrades.
Not at all. The old, lower frequency patterns of our biology are resisting this new light. That friction between our old genetic conditioning and this new, incoming cosmic data creates a massive physical and internal revolution.
Oh, wow.
So that buzzing you feel. The framework argues it isn't just your to-do list or your relationship problems. It's the literal friction of your biology adapting to a completely new current of celestial energy.
Okay, so we have this intense internal psychological pressure compounded by this literal cosmic weather driving a universal agitation. If our very DNA is vibrating with friction, how are we supposed to navigate that without just hiding under the covers and hoping it stops?
Right. Well, to map out the solution, the author introduces a really profound visual framework, the metaphor of the hourglass.
The hourglass metaphor, yeah, that part is incredibly clarifying because it visualizes the exact structure of this journey.
So let's picture an hourglass. The wide base at the bottom represents the shadow, that is, the human suffering and agitation we've been discussing. And the text points out that this bottom area is the exact same for everyone.
Like universal.
Yes.
Yeah.
When we experience suffering, the raw biological feeling of it is a universal, identical condition.
So pain is pain. My wall of anxiety feels fundamentally the same as your wall of anxiety.
Exactly. Now look at the very top of the hourglass, the wide area at the upper end. This represents the ultimate goal, the city or city of awakening, which is total freedom.
Okay.
Remarkably, the text states that this top area is also identical for everyone. When one person experiences true spiritual freedom or enlightenment, it is the exact same boundless, empty experience as anyone else's, regardless of the language, culture, or religion they use to describe it. So the shadow is a shared state, and the awakening is a shared state.
But the middle is where the entire process bottlenecks.
Yes, the middle, that narrow, pinched neck of the hourglass.
Okay.
That represents the transition phase, which the text calls the gift. And unlike the top and bottom, the path through that narrow neck is utterly, completely unique to you.
Utterly unique.
It is a virgin, untrodden path through the specific minefield of your own personal suffering.
Okay, hold on. I have to push back here. If the path through the narrow neck of the hourglass is completely unique to me, and I can't follow anyone else's footsteps, then why are we reading this text?
Right.
Isn't reading a guide about the 51st gene key an attempt to use an external framework to get through the neck? Like, if gurus and external guides are useless, isn't this material contradicting itself?
That is the ultimate paradox of spiritual frameworks, and the text actually addresses it directly. It insists that external teachings, whether it's the Buddha, a great philosopher, or even the gene keys themselves, are only maps.
Just maps.
Right. They can show you the shape of the terrain, they can offer inspiration, and they can act as mirrors reflecting your own agitation back to you. But a map cannot walk the path for you.
Yeah, but our minds don't like that.
No, the mind desperately wants security. It wants a defined, fixed set of steps to follow to guarantee a safe passage.
We want someone to hand us a checklist for enlightenment, like, do these 5 things and you'll be fine.
And that is impossible, which is why the transition phase through the neck of the hourglass is specifically named the gift of initiative. Taking the initiative means having the courage to abandon the checklist and trust the spontaneous direction of your own feet.
Oh.
The text argues that every true gift inherently breaks new ground. It is fiercely original. You have to invent your own creative, unprecedented way through your own shadow.
Okay, let's bring this abstract concept down to earth, though. How do you practically do that?
Right.
How do you take the initiative and invent your own path when you're literally sitting on the couch overwhelmed by an anxiety attack?
To understand the mechanics of application, the text introduces the concept of a programming partner. In this genetic framework, every gene key is biologically and archetypally paired with another. They balance each other out. The programming partner to the 51st gene key of agitation is the 57th gift, which is intuition.
Intuition.
Yeah.
So how does intuition practically dismantle agitation?
Intuition is the exact opposite of the north wind we talked about earlier. Intuition requires profound subtlety. It requires physical and mental softness.
Like, you can't force it.
Exactly. You simply cannot access your intuition if your nervous system is locked in a harsh, panicked fight-or-flight response.
The author actually uses a martial arts analogy here that perfectly illustrates the physical sensation of this softness. They talk about Tai Chi.
Yes.
In Tai Chi, when an opponent thrusts a fist at you, your instinct is to put your hands up, stiffen your body, and fight force with force to block the attack.
Yeah.
But Tai Chi teaches you to do the exact opposite. It teaches you to lean into the attack.
It's a completely counterintuitive physical mechanism.
Totally counterintuitive. You energetically yield and go towards the obstacle. By yielding and leaning into the strike, you find the correct relationship to that aggressive energy. You don't fight the force, You guide it past you, and the opponent's own momentum sends them flying across the room.
And the author is asking you to treat your own anxiety, your own agitation, like that Tai Chi opponent.
Like, lean into it.
Yes. The text issues a direct challenge. Locate a current source of agitation in your life right now. It could be a financial worry, a relationship conflict, or just a generalized sense of dread.
We all have at least one of those.
Right. But instead of tensing up and bracing for impact, instead of acting like the north wind, lean into it with softness. Create an internal spaciousness around the problem. Let the discomfort literally flood your nervous system without resisting it.
You sit in.
Listen to it. Trust the discomfort. By yielding to the energy of the shadow, you create a vacuum. And into that vacuum, your intuition can finally penetrate the problem, allowing a creative, completely original solution to emerge spontaneously.
Because you stop filling all the available space in your mind with panic, which finally allows the answer to quietly enter the room.
Exactly. And what's crucial to understand is that the author doesn't just view this as a neat psychological trick to help you feel a little more relaxed on a Sunday afternoon.
Right.
The text integrates this Tai Chi of problem solving directly into what it calls the Pearl sequence and the Golden Path.
Let's define those terms because they sound very mystical. What are the Pearl sequence and the Golden Path?
So in the broader architecture of this material, the Golden Path and the Pearl sequence are specific frameworks that map out an individual's route to realizing their ultimate life's work and achieving material prosperity.
Oh, so it connects to actual daily life.
Very much so. The text is making a very grounded claim here. Taking the initiative to lean into your deep-seated agitation is the literal root of your vocation. Transforming your core wound into a creative opportunity is the essential mechanism for actual career, material, and cultural success. In business, in art, in community building, initiative is the engine that changes the trajectory of your destiny.
Because, if you just suppress the agitation, you stay trapped in a generic, safe life that someone else designed for you. But if you use the energy of the shadow, you invent something totally new.
You stop trapping yourself in a narrow set of parameters, and you start imbibing the wonder of the ever-changing present. You make the massive energy of the shadow work for you instead of against you.
Okay, so if someone masters this Tai Chi of problem solving, if they abandon the harshness of the north wind, lean into their agitation with radical softness and intuition, and successfully navigate their unique path through that narrow neck of the hourglass.
Yeah.
Where does that path finally lead? Like, what is the physical or psychological destination at the top of the hourglass?
The text refers to the top of the hourglass as the CD of awakening. CD translates roughly to a divine gift or ultimate realization. And it reveals that the 51st CD is fundamentally about initiation.
Initiation. That sounds kind of intense. It sounds like a secret society ritual.
It is meant to convey something profound, definitely. The text describes great initiations as dramatic, irreversible upsurges in the frequency of our physical and subtle bodies. These aren't just minor aha moments you have while reading a book.
Not just a nice thought.
No, these are profound biological transmutations. The author specifically notes what is called the sixth initiation, referring to it as communion.
Okay, what does communion actually mean in this framework? Because if we're talking about dissolving the separate self, I have to ask on behalf of the listener.
Go for it.
If I dissolve my separate self, how do I still go to work on Monday? How does someone function in modern society if they're experiencing communion?
It's a totally valid concern because the mind equates dissolving the self with a kind of non-functional spacing out. Like you're just sitting on a rock somewhere.
Exactly.
But communion, or enlightenment, isn't about becoming incapable of interacting with the world. The text describes it as the moment when the illusion of separation ends. Life simply sees itself as everything. You still chop wood and carry water, you still go to work, but the internal friction is gone. You are no longer defending a rigid, fragile ego against the universe. After this initiation, the text states, your baseline reality undergoes a vast, permanent shift. You operate from a place of absolute flow rather than defense.
Which brings us to what might be the most beautiful contradiction in the entire text. When discussing this permanent shift of initiation, the author references the Tibetan tradition. And in that tradition, the 51st gene key is represented by an esoteric object called the Vajra.
Ah, yes. The thunderbolt scepter.
Yes, it translates literally to thunderbolt. A thunderbolt signifies permanent, indestructible, terrifyingly sudden change. A thunderbolt is violent, right? It splits the sky open, it burns whatever it touches to ash.
It does.
Yet, as we discussed with the programming partners earlier, the key to unlocking this 51st gene key is the 57th gift, intuition, which the text represents as the gentle flowing wind. The paradox is glaring. How can a thunderbolt be gentle? How do you reconcile a shocking, violently sudden spiritual awakening with the radical softness of the wind?
That paradox is the ultimate secret mechanism of this gene key. The author clarifies that to meet the violent, shocking energy of the thunderbolt, you must be as pliant as the wind. Think of it in terms of physics.
Okay.
If a massive shock wave hits a rigid, unbending oak tree, the tree shatters into splinters. But if that same shock wave blows through a willow tree, the willow just bends, yields to the force, and survives completely intact.
Oh, man. So the softness isn't a tactic to avoid the shock. It is the structural requirement to survive it.
Precisely. Awakening, according to this framework, is not a sudden attainment of rigid, impenetrable perfection. It is actually a continuous, deepening series of softenings.
Softenings.
Yeah, your awareness might become laser-focused, but your nervous system, your heart, and your mind must become softer, wider, and infinitely more open. Mildness, this radical yielding spaciousness, is the absolute biological prerequisite for spiritual initiation.
That is so counter to how we usually operate.
Totally. When you are confronted with the thunder of life, the noise, the cultural turbulence, the unexpected personal shocks, instead of tensing up like the oak tree, you must relax, open, and become milder.
You literally have to cultivate incredible softness to safely conduct incredible power.
And as you become more yielding, your consciousness naturally expands to encompass wider possibilities.
Yeah.
You no longer need to be terrified of the shock of initiation or the daily friction of life because you have cultivated the internal spaciousness to simply let it pass through you.
Oh. Well, to bring all of these moving parts together, moving from that initial terrifying wall of agitation all the way to profound awakening is not a battle. It is not about fighting your anxiety. It's not about trying to rigidly follow a guru's specific set of rules to escape the confines of your own mind. It is entirely about recognizing and abandoning our biological default setting of harshness. It's about cultivating the radical, warming softness of the sun and using your unique individual intuition to actively lean into your discomfort like a Tai Chi master. As the framework proposes, every shadow contains a gift. You just have to unlock it by refusing to fight it.
The shadow isn't the enemy, the shadow is the fuel. You just have to stop trying to extinguish it and instead learn the internal mechanics of how to burn it creatively.
And to close out our deep dive today, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over, something that reframes this entire journey. The text boldly claims that the true definition of a victim is simply someone who doesn't take the initiative.
That is a deeply confronting definition for the modern mind.
It really is. It fundamentally shifts the entire paradigm of how we view our personal struggles. So with that definition in mind, the next time you are sitting on that meditation cushion and you hit that towering wall of buzzing chaos, or, the next time you face a massive, seemingly unfair roadblock in your career, or you experience a sudden, shocking thunderbolt of change in your life, consider this.
Yeah.
What if that specific painful agitation isn't an attack against you? What if it isn't evidence that you are failing at life? What if it is actually a personalized, highly exclusive invitation? An invitation to finally stop following the crowd, trust the spontaneous direction of your own feet, and invent the exact creative path you were always meant to walk.